Good morning.
Morning.
The July 12th, 2023 meeting of the Board of Estimates is now called to order. The board continues to meet in a hybrid format. For those of you here live, please take a moment now to silence your cell phones and other electronic devices. Please keep yourself on mute for those attending virtually until you have been recognized by the chair. At this time, I would like our clerk, Celeste Amato, for any corrections, additions, and noted abstentions for today's agenda.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Good morning, everyone. I am first want to note for the record that in the absence of President Nick Mosby, we're joined this morning by Vice President Sharon Middleton, who will sit in and vote on his behalf. We just need to note that for the record. I'm also very pleased to share that this morning we have no changes, corrections, or walk-ons. So there will be no dramatic reading from me this morning. We have the following protests to note this morning for item SB 23-12346, City Council Peer Recovery Specialists, Peer Navigators in the Enoch Pratt Free Library System. There is an application for a charitable solicitation for that purpose this morning, and there has been a statement of opposition received. Also, for SB 23-12170, Department of General Services, Emergency Procurement GS 23805, Baltimore Convention Center, Elevator Modernization, a statement of opposition has been received for this item as well. We have the following deferrals and withdrawals to note this morning. Item SB 23-12393, City Council Travel Request. This item is being withdrawn because it is a duplicate item in the system. We also have the following items all being deferred this morning. SB 23-12246, Personnel, Mayor's Office. This item is deferred. SB 23-12305, Procurement, Selected Source, Contract Number 06000, Relocation. SB 23-12321, Report for Emergency Procurement for the Department of Housing. SB 23-12328, Report Emergency Procurement for Recreation and Parks. SB 23-12319, Report for Emergency Procurement Police Department. SB 23-12324, Report for Emergency Procurement DPW. SB 23-12322, Report for Emergency Procurement for the Department of Human Resources. SB 23-12320, Report for Emergency Procurement for Department of Human Resources. SB 23-12323, Report Emergency Procurement for Department of Transportation. SB 23-12326, Report for Emergency Procurement for the Mayor's Office of Employment Development. SB 23-12318, Report for Emergency Procurement for the Health Department. SB 23-12317, Report for Emergency Procurement for the Fire Department. SB 23-12327, Report for Emergency Procurement for the Enoch Pratt Free Library. SB 23-12330, Report for Emergency Procurement for Baltimore City Information and Technology. SB 23-12325, Report Emergency Procurement for the Department of Finance. SB 23-12331, Report for Emergency Procurement for the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services. And SB 23-12329, Report for Emergency Procurement for the Sheriff's Department. The following items are on the non-routine agenda this morning. SB 23-12288, Transportation Construction Capital Construction Contract. SB 23-12035, TR 22013, Resurfacing Highways at Various Locations, Southeast Sector 6. SB 23-12296, Procurement Expenditure of Funds, Invoices without a valid contract. SB 23-12299, Procurement Expenditure of Funds, Invoices without a valid contract. SB 23-12309, Request to pay outstanding invoices for Johnson Controls, Inc. SB 23-12346, City Council Peer Recovery Specialists, Peer Navigators in the Enoch Pratt Free Library System, Charitable Solicitation. A statement of opposition has been received for this item. And SB 23-12170, Department of General Services, Emergency Procurement, GS 23805, Baltimore Convention Center, Elevator Modernization. Again, a statement of opposition has also been received for this item. We have the following abstentions to note this morning. The Honorable Mayor Brandon Scott is abstaining on item SB 2310897, ratification First Amendment, Johns Hopkins University, CCCHR Integrated HIV Surveillance and Prevention Programs. The Honorable Comptroller Bill Henry has the following abstentions to note on SB 2312385, Police Department Travel, SB 2312380, City Council Travel, SB 2312220, Employee Retirement Systems Travel, SB 2312221, Employee Retirement System Travel, SB 2312222, Employees Retirement System Travel, SB 2312381, Police Department Travel, SB 2312389, Police Department Travel, SB 2312387, Police Department Travel, and SB 2312388, Police Department Travel. City Solicitor Ebony Thompson has no abstentions to note this morning. The Director of Public Works, Richard Luna, has one abstention to note this morning on SB 2312164, Department of Public Works, Employment Agreement and Housing Allowance for Bureau Head of Solid Waste. And the Honorable Sharon Middleton has one abstention to note, SB 2312380, Travel Request. Madam Vice President, that concludes our opening statement for this morning.
Thank you. At this time, I will ask for a motion to approve and adopt the opening statement as read by the clerk.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving the opening statement as presented, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The opening statement has been adopted. I now direct the board members' attention to the memorandum from my office dated July 10th, 2023, identifying matters to be considered as routine agenda items, together with any corrections, additions, abstentions, and no votes that have been noted by the clerk. I will entertain a motion to approve all the items contained on the routine agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving the items on the routine agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The routine agenda items have been adopted. The first item on the non-routine agenda can be found on pages 5 and 6, SB-23-12348, Baltimore City Council. This request is to approve a governmental charitable application to allow Councilmember Zeke Cohen and staff to solicit donations to support the funding of peer recovery specialists in the Enoch Pratt Free Library branches. It is on the non-routine agenda because the board received a statement of opposition from constituent Lou Fields. We will call on a representative from Councilman Cohen's office first, and then Mr. Fields, if he is available. Okay.
He's here. Luke?
Okay. To elaborate on this request, we will have someone walk us through this settlement. The floor is yours. Who? Yes. Okay. Identify yourself.
Yep.
And
Good morning, Mayor Scott, Vice President Middleton, Comptroller Henry, and members of the board. My name is Maggie Master. I am the Chief of Staff for Councilmember Cohen. Today, I wanted to share context for an application submitted by Councilmember Cohen of the 1st District. The waiver request for submission to the Board of Ethics of Baltimore City would allow Councilmember Cohen and staff to solicit donations to support funding of peer recovery specialists in all Enoch Pratt Free Library branches. This program began as a pilot in one library, Penn North, shepherded by the Trauma Informed Care Task Force, of which Councilmember Cohen is the former chair. It provides counseling and mentorship to those struggling with addiction and signals that our libraries are safe harbors. The program enlists individuals in recovery and employs them to help peers who are struggling with addiction and mental health challenges access treatment and other resources. Peer navigators have been working to help people access treatment, Narcan, receive Narcan trainings, and other resources like housing. Based on the success of the program in Penn North, the pilot has expanded currently to 6 libraries in the city. It has been heralded as a national model and been studied by Governor Moore's Special Secretary of Opioid Response for replication across the state. With With appropriate funding, the program will be able to staff peer recovery specialists in every library branch in the city. The program at Enoch Pratt Free Library is a tried and trusted model that connects those seeking support with peers trained to guide and assist at every stage of someone's recovery journey while connecting them to community resources and promoting overall wellness. The program employs returning citizens who have overcome addiction and provides them with hope and purpose, in addition to serving a vital need in the opioid epidemic. Councilmember Cohen plans to follow all city guidelines for this solicitation, including filings and reportings, and has already been put on the agenda for the Ethics Board's August meeting to consider this.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members of the board? No. Next, we will hear from, thank you. Next, we will hear from Mr. Fields. Mr. Fields, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Oh boy, sad day in Baltimore. That's how we starting our day. Let's start over. Good morning, Baltimore.
Good morning.
All right now, this is Baltimore. Look, folks, I'm here for one reason, to make sure the Baltimore City's MBE program becomes the best in the nation. So, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Comptroller, welcome, Ms. Thompson, and every member of the staff of this wonderful Board of Estimates. I've sent in writing my 12 reasons for objecting to this item. I'm Louis Fields, the founder and first president of the Greater Baltimore Black Chamber of Commerce. I did that in 2006. God is good, because he's still going strong. I'm also joined by Mr. Wayne Frazier, president of the Maryland Washington Minority Contractors Association, the nation's largest and the best minority MBE program in our nation. Today, we're going to talk about a situation where I believe is seriously a conflict of interest. It's very troubling because the Baltimore Enoch Pratt Library, Mr. Mayor, has a budget of $44 million. That makes it seemingly unneed financially for a person who sits on the city council, who we elected to do legislation, drafting, passing bills, and work in his community. Now, this particular councilman represents one of our most troubled districts at this time, which is Fells Point. I know you're aware of the news of late with Fells Point. I've been doing a tour there for 23 years. Of late, numerous shootings, violence, drunkenness, disorder, and to have this opportunity to look at a council person who represents this district who would say, no, I want to go be a fundraiser for the Enoch Pratt Library, which we love the library. Remember, folks, this is not about the library. This is about a council person who seeks to violate the laws of our city, which says elected officials should not be receiving gifts and definitely should not be out soliciting gifts on behalf of another agency. Additionally, this council person, at this point, has already made a public announcement that he's running for a citywide office. What better way to do that than become a public fundraiser from one of our city's most trusted institutions, which, by the way, not only has a $44 million budget, but thanks to the mayor and the American Recovery Act, they received another $18 to $19 million. So there is no pressing financial need for the councilman to step away from his district, the people he represents, the voters who elected him, to spend time. And then also, not only that, the writing says he wants to use his staff. That's not what we elect a council person to do. I also see that if I lived in his district and I wanted to have an appointment with him and his staff, and they're taking their time to do this type of job, what happens to constituent service? And who's paying for this? Even though you might give him the exemption, who's paying for his salary and his staff's salary while they're doing this? Is it the Enoch Pratt Library, or is it the voters and taxpayers of the city of Baltimore? This is just going down a bad road for our city. We have had too many national public scandals with elected officials in the past having issues, particularly with financial issues. So I would ask the board to just deny this request. Thank you.
Are there any questions from members of the board? Yes.
Thank you, Madam VP. Mr. Fields, you asserted earlier that you said that this was a claiming of a violation of the laws. However, this is actually just one step outlined in the Board of Ethics, and Councilmember Cohen is going through that proper process. And you are allowed, when he has his set date, I think the date is already scheduled in the Board of Ethics, to voice your opposition. But this is not a violation of the laws. He's actually following the procedures of this. That's number one. But number two, you also stated that the violence, the drunkenness, this disorderness in the district, I would like to argue that the opioid epidemic is a huge contributor of that. And what the Enoch Pratt Library is, this is not, the $44 million is not solely to this program, as you stated. It is a pilot, and it's been a successful pilot that is on the ground addressing the very issues that you're asserting. So I would argue that this $44 million is not that the Enoch Pratt Library has been allocated. It is not specifically for this program. And I would argue that this is exactly what, when we say we're addressing council members to address this, these are the issues that we want them to address, things that are actually happening on the ground level. And the Enoch Pratt Library, they have vast branches, so they can not only in that district, in Fells Point, but in all districts. So I do want to correct you on that point, that this is not a violation of the laws, but he's actually adhering to the process that's set out.
Should I respond?
You can.
Yes, I agree with most of what you said. It's just a matter that why should we have an elected official do this fundraising when the board, mind you, the board of the Enoch Pratt Library, 3 dozen people, a former mayor, a former state senator, doctors, college presidents, attorneys, architects, and many other extraordinarily successful people serve on their board. In fact, at their recent board meeting in December of 2022, the board chair said, and this is Dr. Michelle Farmer, chair of the Board of Trustees, December 14, 2022. She stated, through their great efforts, the board ensures the Pratt Library system is one of the best institutions in the city of Baltimore. That's what the board chair said. So that says to me, this board can raise another $500,000. In fact, another point, on April 1st this year, in one day, the board of the Pratt Library raised $444,000 in one day. One day. Additionally, when I spoke to the money, the mayor has already allotted to this agency. So my point is not about the library and their wonderful program. I love the library. My brother's worked there 30 years. I was there last night. It's not about the library. The library is doing a great program. It's about an elected official who seeks to skirt the law with your votes and to do what he wants to do. This is my opinion as a citizen and taxpayer, and I have a right to that opinion.
Mr. Mayor?
I make a motion to approve.
I see no further questions. We have a motion to approve. All those in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. This item is approved.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
The next item on the non-routine agenda can be found on pages 16 and 17, SB-23-12170, Department of General Services. The request is to approve an emergency procurement with Nicholas Contracting, Inc. to modernize the east side elevators located on 1 West Pratt Street. It is on the non-routine agenda because the board received a statement of opposition from constituent Lou Fields. We will call on representatives from the Department of General Services first, and then Mr. Fields can come up. From the Department of General Services, do we have someone to walk us through that report?
Good morning. Marwan Karajat.
I'm sorry.
Good morning. Marwan Karajat, representing the Department of General Services. This is an emergency was requested by Baltimore Convention Center. They have elevators that been outdated. Projects were put on hold when the discussion was about the convention center to retrofit the building, replace part of the buildings. So we did not really plan any capital projects to replace elevators in the last 3 years. However, last year we received an emergency request where elevators were failing. People were locked into the elevators. Convention center had to pay back some vendors because of the failing elevators. So we followed the emergency procurement process. We had the Director of Finance approval for emergency, and we approved the contract. And currently, the replacement is underway. So what we're doing here, we're just reporting to the board members the situation and what the contract is about. So it's been 2 months since we started the work, and we follow the law in this case for emergency procurement. Thank you.
Any questions from the board? Thank you. And we have someone, a representative from IMBU. Chris Lundy, are you, is he online? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Good morning, Madam Vice President.
Good morning. You're on.
Was there a particular question, or did you guys want just a general overview of the participation on this matter?
Yes, please give an overview.
Okay, that's not a problem. This was an emergency contract that we were, based on the law change and the existing law that we have now, we are able to put goals on these emergency procurements. And this is one where we were able to get participation goals on this contract. There is an opposition. I'll just speak directly to the opposition. I had an opportunity to speak with Mr. Fields. I do want to clarify, I did not make any comment on the extent of the goals on the contract, only that there were goals. He was under the information when we began the conversation that there were no goals at all on this procurement. So we did get minority and women's business participation. I think the concern that's raised is that there are not specifically MBE elevator repair subcontractors on this contract. And in conformity with our program, we do not mandate the specific utilization of any subcontractors on the contract, so long as they're offering commercially beneficial services for the contract. We allow the prime contractor to determine what use they're going to give to their MBE and WBE subcontractors. So in that regard, there are MBEs and WBEs on this contract, and they are doing beneficial services. It's my understanding from both DGS and the Convention Center that this was an urgent repair that they needed to do, thus qualifying for the emergency procurement status from the Director of Finance. But we have no concerns regarding the participation on this matter and anticipate them meeting the goals as they continue to do this work.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions from the board at this point? Thank you. Next, we will hear from Mr. Fields.
Good morning again.
Good morning.
I think, again, I'm here on behalf of the citizens of Baltimore. My task today and my remarks is to make things better. And often the voice of opposition is not the voice of favoritism. But again, in our city, to make things better, when things don't seem right to us as citizens, we have to stand, we have to speak. And so this morning, I'm Louis Fields again, founding president of the Greater Baltimore Black Chamber of Commerce, an advocate for ME businesses. And I go back to the days of Arnold Jolivet in 1986 and 87, when he would come down here and I'd be watching him standing where I'm standing today. But my reasons are very simple. Since FY 2022, the Baltimore Convention Center's budget has increased from $17.9 million to over $25.9 million in FY 24. About an $8 million increase. This budget, I believe, should preclude any city agency from needing emergency contracts because they have enough funding and finances to plan for repairs that you would see 1, 2, 3, 4 years out before it becomes, as they say, an emergency. Also, when you look at the fact that they're asking for the elevators on the east side of the building, well, this center has multiple elevators and multiple escalators, multiple entrances, right? My concern about the contract when I first saw it on your agenda items, I didn't see the MBE procurement. And so I inquired. And Mr. Lundy was kind enough to say, well, no, there is. There's a 7% goal set by, I guess, the contracting department here. And 7% of this contract for any minority, MBE, woman-owned, black, would be very helpful to help them get a piece of the action, pay payroll, and keep growing their business. So when the city of Baltimore has this type of work, and we know in the city of Baltimore, we have several certified African-American-owned elevator companies. For these companies, number one, not to be aware of the contract, not to be allowed to submit any kind of bid, it then permits Prime, who's in our Baltimore market area, but not in Baltimore City. That's a distinction I had hoped we would begin to make at some point. Because Baltimore City's businesses, especially black businesses, during this post-COVID period, they need every penny they can get. So if this contract is $3 million, $5 million, $6 million, and you don't have any African-American minority contractors who do elevator work, the 7% has been matched by someone who does project management. Okay, that's meeting the law, but not the spirit. The spirit of the law for the program is for when a prime contractor does X type of business, minorities in X type of business get a chance. This is what we're asking for. Now, I'm not going to belabor the point because you all have my writing, my article in writing. The issue is this. Should our city decide to become the leader in our nation for black business procurement and other minorities under the law, we should be number one in this. We should be number one in this, right? What you think? Shouldn't we be number one? I'm asking you. Sure, we should. Now, how do we get there? When things like this arise, citizens like myself come and share our thoughts and reflections. You vote the way you want to vote. But in the deliberations and going forward, maybe there needs to be some added laws that says the minority contract can't just be met by a non-self-performing minority. It meets the law. But think about the African-American elevator companies today who are sitting at home watching this, and they're not getting any shot at this action. That's not going to make us number one, Mr. Mayor. We got to become number one. This is Baltimore, a black city. We got to help our black businesses get more money to create more jobs, get our young people off the street, get some training programs, some apprenticeship programs. How can they do that when we just cut completely out of a contract? Thank you.
Goal should be 37%.
Excuse me.
Should be that.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the board members, Mr. Mayor?
No questions. And Mr. Wayne, you're welcome to come to the podium if you like, sir.
Thank you.
Before I respond.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Wayne Frazier, president of the Maryland-Washington Minority Companies Association. And I'm here, as Mr. Fields asked, to shed light on this situation, which is small in nature, dollar-wise, but big in the whole subject of uplifting our African-American, our black businesses. We showed that there are 2 African-American escalator companies that are certified in the Baltimore area, 4 in the DC Baltimore area. And this emergency was granted, and I have no problem with that. And it was granted with a 7% goal. I have a problem with that. We could achieve the full cities, what is it, 25% MBE, 27% MBE, and how much for women?
10.
37%, right? We could achieve that. That's all. When you approve it with this change to 37%. And then Mr. Fields spoke to the guy in Columbia, Maryland, Nichols, and he said, I would welcome it. The city didn't ask. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Mayor.
No, thank you. Mr. Wayne and Mr. Liu on this one. I know Chief Lundy's going to chime in a second, but I know both of you know this already because I know you've spoken with him, that what you speak of is the exact task that I've given to him with his new increased office, his new increased budget, is to make Baltimore #1 and to make sure that we're having that deep focus and that information has been given to every agency high and low, that Baltimore's contracts will start to reflect Baltimore in a much deeper way. So I just wanted you to hear that from me.
Thank you.
And then Chief Lundy had his hand raised, Madam Vice President.
Chief Lundy?
Thank you so much. And I echo the mayor's sentiments, and I agree with the desire to make Baltimore better and to increase our local businesses, our small businesses, and to make sure that they're part of the growth as we continue to build and better the city. When we have emergency procurements, I want everybody to be mindful that there's a few things that are taking place. When items normally come to the board, we've advertised them and gone to a procurement process that takes months, and sometimes even in excess of that. When we have these emergency procurements that come up, we do not have the same lead time on the contract, and the prime also does not always have the same time to secure subcontractors to be utilized on that contract. That sometimes leads to potentially lower actual utilization on that contract because they may not have been able to get as many subcontractors in place. Again, we do not mandate how a prime contractor utilizes their subcontractors. On many of our contracts, we have people that are purely working within the scope of the contract to do that same work, and we have subcontractors, minority and women-owned businesses day in and day out gaining additional valuable experience by working on city contracts as subcontractors, and we'll continue to do so as we set goals. It was imperative, it must be recognized that the council saw in 2021 the need to place goals on emergency procurements. It can't be lost that prior to that law change, every emergency procurement had all of the goals, as a matter of course within the code, waived. We've made significant progress over the last couple of years being able to set goals on emergencies, and it was very timely in light of the COVID-19 pandemic and the proliferation of emergency procurements that we had to do to respond to that pandemic and some of the strains that we had on our supply chains and contracting resources. So we do take this very seriously. We are evaluating every contract on a contract by contract basis, including those emergency procurements, and we're really looking at availability. One thing I also want to highlight is when we get to the certified elevator contractors. While we do have minority elevator contractor businesses, not all of them are currently certified. We only have one currently certified MBE elevator contractor. If we purely simply looked at the scope of the contract and limited to elevator services, we, by the code, would be unable to set goals. We need at least 2 certified businesses to set goals on a contract. So by taking the greater view of allowing businesses to be able to do any beneficial services, that allows us to get more participation in situations where we don't have enough certified businesses such as this. So it is a benefit that we're able to set goals on these procurements. We're going to continue to work in partnership with the agencies to get involved as early as possible when we're drafting these scopes. We have initiatives with DPW and Interim Director Luna on their unbundling. We're also going to be rolling out further unbundling guidance throughout the city to the agencies to work in partnership so that we can continue to get more opportunities for participation for our small, local, minority, and women-owned businesses. And most importantly, as the mayor said, we are going to be making the announcement of the new mayoral agency on Friday that is going to be tasked with serving our local minority, small local minority and women-owned businesses and continuing to serve them. And I work in great partnership with Mr. Frazier. He is an excellent partner to us and to the community and the things he does to uplift businesses. And I spoke with Mr. Fields the other day. I look forward to working with him as well in partnership and anything we can do to uplift the businesses, because we truly do share in the same vision for Baltimore that is more reflective of our community, to have more Black-owned businesses, to have more minority and local businesses. So I look forward to continuing to do that work. And I really have to thank the mayor for his investment and his foresight in seeing the need for this agency to really focus on these important issues. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lundy, for your important comments. And now we're going to hear from Comptroller Henry.
Thank you, Madam Acting President. I want to start with, I appreciate and respect the concerns that Mr. Fields and Mr. Frazier have raised. I want to also take this opportunity to, in essence, summarize some of Chief Lundy's remarks as what you really are asking for is a change in the law. And that is not what this board does. This board implements existing law and occasionally interprets it, but there is no law requiring what you want the board to do. And that for that, you need to go to the city council and ask for that law to be added. And Chief Lundy pointed out that the council already acted fairly recently in making a change to how we do emergency procurements, and would probably, I would expect, be open to consideration of the points that you raised here before us. But the other thing, and this I just want to be really clear for everyone, not just in the room, but for the public watching, that emergency procurements are not approved by this body. They have already been approved. That is the point of an emergency procurement, is that the Department of Finance has acknowledged that this has to be done so quickly that it can't go through the full Board of Estimates process. So they approve the emergency procurement, they go off and do it. In this case, it was approved by Finance back in January. After they do that, they are required to report that they have done it to the board. And so today we will note the emergency procurement report that was brought to us, but we're not making any decisions because they've already been made and this has already been done when it comes to emergency procurements. So that was all I wanted to add. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Comptroller. Mr. Mayor?
I just wanted to change topics just for a second before they have to leave. You know that this week is our first week of Youth Works, and we have a bunch of 7,000 young people in the audience, so I wanted us all to acknowledge them. Welcome. That is all, Madam Vice President.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Fields, for your advocacy and paying attention to what comes before the Board of Estimates. The next item on the non-routine agenda can be found on page 143, SB.
We do have to follow.
Oh, I'm noting this previous conversation and the previous item on the agenda to approve. Note to approve.
Noted.
It's noted to approve. The next item on the non-routine agenda can be found on page 143, SB-23-12296, Department of Procurement. The request is to approve an invoice without a valid contract with the Laboratory Corporation of America Holdings. From the Procurement Department, we have someone to talk us through this report. Mr. Mayor? Before that person comes up?
Yeah, but before our new procurement chief comes up, Maine, I just want to point this out for the board, but also more importantly the public, and more importantly than that, the agencies. Our new procurement director was brought here for many reasons. We know how antiquated our procurement system is. We know that we've been engaged in a long process to update it, working with the comptroller, the president, and many others on the board and beyond. But I want to be very clear that one of the things that he's been tasked with is to make sure that things like these stop happening, period. And that if people continue and agencies continue to do things like this, let me just be very clear that it will cause some people to be employed elsewhere other than the city of Baltimore. Thank you.
Thank you. And procurement, please identify yourself.
Good morning, Vice President Middleton, Mayor Scott, Comptroller Henry, board members. My name's Adam Manny, and I'm your new Director of Procurement. In regards to SB 23-12296, this was for the City Health Department, and these were for laboratory testing for citizens on a variety of different tests that were done for LabCorp, and this is now asking for the funds so that we can move forward and pay these bills and move forward with it.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members of the board? Mr. Comptroller Henry.
Do you have the background on how we ended up having this work done by LabCorp without having a valid contract?
My understanding is due to lack of resources across the board, the procurement office getting the contracts in place in time, that this was necessary work that was to get done. As Mayor Scott said, part of my charge is to make sure that doesn't happen anymore. And as we go through the procurement transformation process, to make sure we don't have gaps in contracts going forward.
Okay.
And using a variety of different technical resources and personal resources to ensure that doesn't happen.
I guess let me put it more specifically. Was this a situation where we continued to use a previous vendor after their contract expired, or is this a situation where we had no contract and so we went out and just got somebody to do the work because it needed to be done?
My understanding, sir, this was a previous vendor that we had used.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you. Seeing no further questions, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. This item is approved. The next item on the non-routine agenda can be found on page 144, SB 23-12299, Department of Procurement. The request is to approve an invoice without a valid contract with the EA Engineering, Science, and Technology, Inc., again from the Department of Procurement. Department of Public Works.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Vice President Middleton, Comptroller Henry, and members of the board. My name is Ramona Harry. I am the Chief of Internal Operations for the Bureau of Water and Wastewater. This item is an item for EA Engineering in the amount of $20,000. EA Engineering was at the time a previous vendor. The Department of Public Works Water Wastewater is required to do wet testing every year. The vendor at the time, we've had lots of transition, new employees, and lack of knowledge, lack of staff. The appropriate renewals were not done in a timely fashion. Therefore, we had to submit our wet weather testing to MDE and EPA so that we could avoid violations, and the department engaged EA Engineering to provide that wet weather testing. I will note that currently we are working on a contract to cure this in the future. Some of the other things that the department has done, my team for procurement for Bureau of Water and Wastewater has come up with an SOP. I did bring copies if you're interested in a copy of what the SOP does. It works with many of our employees on how to make decisions, how far ahead to make decisions, and we're giving them training. We're providing training not only for water, wastewater, but this is something that we're putting into place throughout the entire department so that we can do better. Our procurement team is sending out notifications, sometimes 6 months in advance, so that we can start getting these contracts rolling, because we do recognize it takes a long time. Department of Finance, Bureau of Procurement is understaffed, so we want to give them as much time to handle it as possible. But we are putting into place a lot of change management practices, a lot of processes that we're changing to alleviate this. So this is one of the items that we're now catching up, doing a lot of cleanup of those items, but I foresee as we continue training that these should disappear, and absolutely agree with Mr. Mayor that this is unacceptable, and we do apologize to the board.
Thank you. That continued training is so important. Are there any questions from members of the board? Seeing no further questions, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. This item is approved. The next item on the non-routine agenda can be found on page 171, SB 23-12309, Department of Procurement. The request is to approve an equipment maintenance service contract with Johnson Controls, Inc., and again, Department of Public Works.
Again, good morning. Ramona Harry, Chief of Internal Operations, Bureau of Water and Wastewater. Again, this is another one of those items. This is for JCI Technologies. This was to do repairs for the LOX plant and pay outstanding invoices for parts and services rendered for the liquid oxygen plant. Services were of an urgent nature, and repairs prevented oil and refrigerant leaks in the liquid oxygen plant. If the plant goes down based on those leaks, then we cannot treat the water, and again, we will be in violation of our MDE and EPA permits.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members? Seeing no further questions, I would entertain a motion to approve this item.
So moved.
All those in favor of approving this item, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. This item is approved. The next item on the non-routine agenda can be found on pages 217 and 218. SB 23-12288, Department of Transportation. The request is to approve a construction contract extra work order with Technifer Industries for the replacement of the Harford Road Bridge over Herring Run. From the Department of Transportation, do we have someone to walk us through the report?
I think they might be on the line. Oh, no, they're
Oh, there you go. Okay. Please
Good morning.
identify yourself.
My name is Bimal Depkota. I'm the Chief of Engineering and Construction. And I have...
Please.
Good morning. My name is Scott Weaver. I'm in charge of the Bridge Engineering Section for the Department of Transportation and the Transportation Engineering and Construction Division.
Thank you.
This change order was for changing in reforestation or tree planting plan. This is a federal contract. When the contract was started, we have a different species of the trees. But during 2018 and 2019, we had a lot of floods in Herring Run, and that changed the entire landscape of the basin over there. So city arborists recommended that those plants that were recommended earlier will not survive. So we had to change the different species. And when the relocation area was identified, the rock in that area was very shallow. So those species were special species, and we had to pay for the contract or the change for the and this change order has also brick deck ceiling, because we changed. Original plan was to have no bike lane there, but at the last minute we added bike lanes. So the because of that configuration change, we tried to make sure that the deck will last longer. So the deck sealant was recommended, and it was approved by Maryland State Highway also. And Federal Highway will participate 80% of the total change order.
Okay. Any questions from members of the board on this item? Thank you. Seeing no further questions, I would entertain a motion.
Oh, sorry.
Did you have?
So moved.
Oh, okay.
Second.
All those in favor of approving this item, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. This item is approved. As there is no more business before the board, we will adjourn. Oops.
Yeah, SB 231035.
So now, yeah, the very next item.
There's one more that I forgot to put on.
Okay.
It's this one. I got it.
Okay.
It's the next one, right? 1235, the resurfacing.
Okay.
Yeah, this one.
Okay, the next item, SB 23-12035, resurfacing highways in various locations, Southeast Sector VI. And that is, again, the Department of Transportation.
Good morning again. This contract 22013 had 3 locations, 3 streets. Boston Street from South Clinton Street to South Kenwood Avenue. East Preston Street from North Milton Avenue to North Broadway. And North Patterson Avenue, Park Avenue from East Biddle Street to East Madison Street. So we had to do this change order because there were shortage in the items for ADA, ramps, sidewalk, curb and gutter. That's why we initiated this change order.
Thank you. And we do have a question from Comptroller Henry.
Yes, good. Okay, thank you, Madam President. Good morning. I get that the title of it is resurfacing highways at various locations, but since you know which streets they're going to be, if this is sort of a request on behalf of the office, if you could make sure that going forward, the specific streets are in the board memo, because we want to be able to search by that. That is one of the things that our office is working on, is we think we can create a visual display of where we're doing this work, but we need you to actually put in the board memo the streets and either block numbers or from which start street to which end street.
We'll do that.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. Seeing no further questions, I would entertain a motion to approve this item.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving this item, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. This item is approved. And as there is no more business before the board, we will adjourn. The next regular scheduled meeting of the Board of Estimates will occur on Wednesday, July 19th at 9 a.m. I thank everyone for tuning in. Baltimore, stay safe, and we love you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Board of Estimates bid opening for July 12th, 2023. I'm Celeste Amato. I'm the clerk to the Board of Estimates, and I am joined by my awesome operational team who has readied us for today's bid opening. We have 3 bids to open today, but first I want to share an addenda from the Department of General Services for contract number GS21826, Fort McHenry Fire Pier renovations. The due date was originally today, and that new opening date is now August 2nd, 2023. Again, that was Fort McHenry Fire Pier renovations, GS21826, opening on August 2nd. First up today, we have a bid that we are opening for the Department of Finance, Bureau of Procurement, RFQ 000253. Audio, visual, and rigging services for Baltimore City Convention Center. Does that match what you have in your hands, Casey?
That is correct. And we have one bid for this RFQ. Projection Presentation Technologies Incorporated.
Only opening the technical. That's what she's going to read.
Oh, this does not say that. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
So this is just a technical?
Yes.
This is just
no
a technical.
Price.
Yeah.
Okay.
No price.
So all we are announcing as a result is that we have a bid, and the technical proposal will be referred to the agency for review.
Can you read the name again?
I will do that.
Please.
The bidder is Projection Presentation Technologies, Inc., and they have submitted a technical proposal for contract number RFQ 000253, audio, visual, and rigging services for the Baltimore City Convention Center.
Yes.
Up next, for Department of Finance, Bureau of Procurement, we have contract number RFQ 000132, emergency generator installation, maintenance, and repair services. Does that match what you have in hand, Casey?
That is correct.
Awesome.
And
is this also just a technical, or is this a price as well?
There's a price.
Okay.
So there's one bid for this from Team Service Corporation of New York. And, oh, sorry, you can take the original. I'm looking at the bid price sheet.
Take your time.
Let me make sure I did it correct. Okay. Total sum, I'm going to read it out as numbers. 1,044,000.
And I'm going to repeat it back because that's what we do. 1,044,000.00.
That is correct.
Okay, that was a bid from Team Service Corporation of New York for $1,044,000. And is that our only bid?
Yes, that's correct.
So Team Service Corporation of New York is the only bidder for RFQ 000132, Emergency Generator Installation, Maintenance, and Repair Services. Up next, for the Department of Recreation and Parks, we have contract number RP21808R. This is Walter P. Carter Pool and Bathhouse.
That's correct. For this request, we have 2 bids submitted. The first one is from
Page 39.
very squeaky book, excuse me.
See the prices in this.
Where's 39?
Oh, did you guys find it?
Oh, you know where it is? If you go to page 39, you'll see the vendor's name. Okay, let me give you this. Down the bottom is going to be the price right here. I just saw that. Give that to you, please.
Okay. Page 30, on page 39, I'm looking at the first bidder is A.R. Marani Incorporated.
The price is right on the last
The
slide.
price is $5,573,416.
16?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna repeat that back. Are you guys ready to confirm?
And it has a bid bond.
And there is a bid bond,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes, I'm ready to confirm.
Okay, that number was 5,573,416.00.
That is correct.
Okay, that bid was from A.R. Marani, Inc. for $5,573,416.
Yes, thank you.
All right, we have one more. We have a second bidder for this from, making sure I can verify their name. From Plano Kudon Construction. This has a bid bond. And the total amount is $5,388,000.
Okay, that number was 5,388,000.00.
That's correct.
Okay. That bidder was Plano Kudon, right? Plano
Yeah.
Kudon, thank you.
Construction, yes.
Thank you to our live audience, Plano Kudon Construction. That bid amount was $5,388,000. And yes, there was a bid bond, correct?
Correct.
Excellent. So those were our 2 bids. A.R. Marani, Inc., $5,573,416. Plano Kudon Construction for $5,388,000 for contract number RP 21808R, Walter P. Carter Pool and Bathhouse. And all of these bids will be referred to the agencies for review. Our next bid opening is on July 19th, 2023 at noon. We will see you all then. Thanks, team.
Thank you.